Tijuana, Mexico, 5:16 in the morning. We meet a high school student named Manuel.
I'm 17 years old.
Who was born across the border in California on the U.S. side, but now lives here in Tijuana, he says, after both his parents got deported. Manuel says he often wonders if it's normal for a student like him and so many others like him to endure what they do each day as they cross into the U.S. for an education. For example, on this morning, on the Mexican side, young U.S.-bound school students passed dozens of exhausted Central American refugees sleeping on the pavement, members of a caravan in the news that's been refused entrance into the United States. After moving past them, Manuel and other students will then have to make the long walk across this pedestrian bridge to the U.S. side, a 500-meter-long walk through an iron and glass structure that some call the cage. Manuel says the walking across it process seems like it's out of a science fiction film. Tiny figures of humans seen making their way through it. Every morning, several hundred U.S.-born children of Mexican-born parents who've been deported from the United States make their way to school in the U.S. this way. Mornings in Tijuana, says Manuel, that begin very early.
Okay, basically I wake up, I put my alarm at 3:50, so I can be waking up and stuff, and around
3:50 in the morning.
Yeah, and around 4, that's when I wake up. I prepare my backpack, my clothes, I take a shower, and then at 5:15 I get out of my house.
Manuel and other students living in Tijuana are allowed to enter the U.S. every morning because they're U.S. citizens, though technically they're not allowed in schools on the U.S. side because they don't live in the school district. What are their policies there? Do you have to be living in the district?
The policy in school is supposed to be living over there so you can go to school. Basically they don't know I'm crossing every day.
For this reason, he's asked us to use the name Manuel and not his real name. The crossing from Tijuana begins by walking up this ramp toward the pedestrian bridge. There's so many people.
Well, basically, most of the people are crossing. If you see teenagers with backpacks, they're probably going to school or college, and the other people are going to work.
How long is the line?
Well, it depends. Every day is longer or shorter, but I think today is in the middle of the bridge, so I would do an hour and a half.
We're gonna wait an hour and a half.
Yeah, or it depends. If my friends are there, I can cut the line and go with them.
We meet other high schoolers waiting in line to enter the U.S., like Victor and his sister Maria and cousin Abigail. All three born in the United States who could live in the U.S. with relatives but don't because they choose to live with parents deported in Tijuana. Why do you go through this?
Because we have family members on the other side, and we, of course, want to be with them. My mom got deported, and then I need to cross the border to see her every day. She's my sister.
It's your sisters?
And these are her cousins. They were born here, but their parents are Mexican. They got deported, so so both parents are here, and I have my dad over there. No, everyone should have the privilege to go to school. Even when it's difficult, you should try to go to school. Education is the right thing.
How do you describe all these kids every day?
Yeah, it's mostly teenagers, high schoolers, even elementary kids come here. My dream is to go to college and make my parents happy.
And you're willing to go through this every day?
Of course, just to make them happy. And show them that I will get my education and have a future.
Among other school kids leaving Tijuana this morning is 6-year-old Pablito. His mom a U.S. citizen, his dad a Mexican who's been denied a visa to move to the U.S.
Me han negado la visa 3 veces. No me han dicho ninguna razón en específico porque me han dicho que no. Ahorita él no pregunta mucho porque tal vez no ha tenido esa separación tan larga. Sino desde que él ha estado chico, siempre viene y siempre es la misma rutina. Entonces, siempre hemos mantenido la cuestión de yo estoy acá porque estoy trabajando, porque no puedo ir allá con tu mamá. pero algún día voy a ir cuando yo termine mi trabajo. Entonces esa cuestión se ha mantenido así. Por lo mismo de que si le intentas explicar que es porque es una visa y que el consulado no te la da, ahorita no lo va a entender.
And Pablito's father says his chances of joining his son in the U.S. anytime soon are quite slim, particularly after U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions made trips to the U.S.-Mexico border, warning people against entering the U.S. illegally.
This is a new era. This is the Trump era. The most important thing for us is to send a message to the world that the border is not open. Please don't come. You will be apprehended if you do come, and you will be deported promptly.
A warning that child trauma specialist Dr. Gloria Valdez says is causing stress for many of these students crossing from Tijuana to the U.S. side, because many fear U.S. immigration agents might follow them in an effort to find their parents or other relatives living without legal documents here in the United States.
Mira, déjame decirte que con la llegada del señor Trump a Estados Unidos, la incertidumbre hacia la familia migrante mixta en Estados Unidos ha incrementado. ¿Qué es la familia migrante mixta? Familias integradas por personas que no cuentan con documentos legales y formales para estar en Estados Unidos, con niños o niñas que nacieron en Estados Unidos. Esas familias viven en constante incertidumbre laboral, educativa, de salud. Lo que está haciendo el gobierno estadounidense, encabezado ahorita por el señor Trump, es fracturando a la familia latina en Estados Unidos.
Many U.S.-born children of deported parents find themselves here in San Isidro, California, south of San Diego, one of the world's largest border crossings, to be closer to a parent who has been deported just across the border wall. A vast majority of San Isidro residents here are Hispanic, many of whom have gone through or know someone in the family that's gone through what the students are going through now. The children finding particularly strong support in the schools they attend, like Willow Elementary, less than a mile from Tijuana, just this side of the U.S.-Mexico border wall.
Good morning, my love. Good morning, precious. Good morning. Good morning, beautiful.
Finding strong support from school faculty here, like fifth grade teacher Nancy Alvarado. In her 30th year teaching, voted Teacher of the Year here at Willow recently, who writes a local newspaper column about her students' challenges and builds homes for the poor in Mexico many weekends with her husband and her own children. A husband, by the way, who she says was an undocumented worker in a Mexican restaurant when they first met many years ago.
He's a U.S. citizen now. When I met him, he did not have papers, and so he was going to return to Mexico. And he is a far harder worker than I will ever be. And honestly, in the event of a zombie apocalypse, he will save your life. I will write you a story about what's going on. He will save your life because he knows how to do actual things.
Good morning.
Through photos and audio recordings, Mrs. Alvarado chronicles her students' journey. From learning how to read.
Well, they're not Syrian refugees, but they are refugees.
To learning that if you take pinto beans and water them, they'll grow and become little green living plants. And she helps her students cope with criticisms she says these young students sometimes hear from some of San Isidro's more well-to-do homeowners living in higher-end communities around San Isidro who are not happy, they say, that some of their property taxes are going towards schools here that permit kids living in Tijuana to attend them.
Why does it bother people? Because people don't want people to get things for free. Because there is an unfortunate misconception that these people come across the border for benefits and these people come across the border to take things for free. And you know what? That's being fed into a lot right now in our current political climate.
Mrs. Alvarado says if there are kids coming from Tijuana who are in attendance in her classroom every day, that's something for higher-ups, she says, to worry about.
Teachers don't handle attendance. That's the office. So I'm not listening. I don't know if you live in Tijuana. I don't know if I see you crossing every single morning in front of 7-Eleven because you just walk from the border. I know nothing. I know that you sit in that chair, you do your homework, you raise your reading level, you don't drive me nuts, You go home at the end of the day.
The school district addressed its residency policy with us via email, stating that it welcomes all children who meet state residency requirements. For example, students are permitted to use an address of a relative or person living in San Isidro when they fill out their school forms. Or if students and their families are homeless here, and San Isidro has one of the highest homeless rates of students and families in the U.S., students and their families are permitted to put down an address of one of the many low-cost local motels here and declare themselves homeless and sign a homeless waiver, which many do, permitting them to go to school here. Some students also tell us the school district seems to look the other way at times and rarely expels students crossing from Tijuana every day.
Students and teachers alike here say one of the biggest concerns every day is not knowing what lies ahead for them and their families in terms of whose mom or whose dad is going to be deported on any given new day. It's a concern, they say, that began immediately after the election of the current U.S. president.
The day after the election, the plaza out there, I swear to you, it looked like somebody had died. I had parents sitting in the plaza crying. And I went up to parents and I just hugged them and I said, look, we'll fix this. You know, the next generation, your kids, I've got them, and we'll fix this. I'm optimistic in the sense that I think the populace has been awakened in a way that hadn't happened for a while. I think we've gotten pretty complacent. And while it's horrifying to me that racism and misogyny and religionism have become totally, openly, socially acceptable, it's also awakened the other half of the population to say we can't be so complacent. We need to act, we need to react, we need to be proactive. These kids' first political memory is going to be of Trump, and it will shape the way they think. And I hope, if I make them good critical thinkers and good learners and kind people, I hope that they'll take that and run with it.
As the current U.S. administration claims growing numbers of U.S. citizens are supporting tougher measures against undocumented immigrants, no matter the impact on their U.S.-born children like those here in San Isidro, we discovered that many U.S. citizens and property owners here in this community ultimately support students crossing every day from Tijuana. For example, we spent 2 hours on this day randomly polling property owners and taxpayers, and not one resident here was against these kids going to school here.
They live in Mexico and they're going to school here? Yeah. Are they U.S. citizens?
Yes, sir, but their parents have been deported in many cases, so...
I don't really have a problem with it. Well, I mean, as long as they're U.S. citizens, they should have the rights of a citizen.
Absolutely. If they're citizens, they should get to go to school here. Yeah.
Property tax people are saying, well, they're not in the district, therefore they shouldn't be covered by property taxes.
If they're a U.S. citizen, they have a right to education. So, you know, people who are on welfare don't pay taxes, and their kids get to go to school.
Right.
So they should get to go to school.
Thank you.
Yeah. It doesn't help their situation if they don't go to school.
Only local resident Don Swanson initially said he was against the students being educated on the U.S. side.
I don't think it's right. I think they're taking advantage of our system. That's my opinion.
Until he was informed most of these kids were born here in the U.S.
Most of these kids are U.S. citizens.
Oh, they're U.S. citizens? What, and they're living in Mexico?
Yes.
Oh, if they're U.S. citizens, I don't have a problem with it then.
And so it doesn't matter to me where you wake up in the morning, as long as you show up and become a better human being and learner as a result of it. I would be heartbroken to see these amazing human beings, parents squeezed out because they gave their kids this chance. I'm worried. I'm concerned for my babies. I'm worried about their parents. I know that it's really hard to make page 54 in the math book important to them. If mom is deported or dad is deported, or they're hungry or homeless or crossing every day and falling asleep in class because I got up at 4 in the morning.
Test scores of students in these areas are said to be among the lowest in the state of California. All these daily challenges, say school officials, certainly don't make learning in school any easier. Deported families now living in Tijuana say they keep sending their U.S.-born kids back across the border to the U.S. because the education is free here, like in San Isidro. compared to public schools in Mexico, for example, in which students and their families are obligated to pay for everything from books and pencils and other school supplies to public school uniforms, and many other service fees for teachers and the schools. Simply not affordable for many, they say, in a country where almost half the people live below the poverty line, and where those who do work make less than $300 a month. Another reason to send their children north, they say, are yet again rising levels of violence in Mexico.
The bottom line here is there is a belief that students who cross into the U.S. for their education will have a better chance of being accepted into a U.S. college or university when completing their early schooling in the U.S. As little Pablito says goodbye to his father here on the Tijuana side this morning before heading off for school on the U.S. side, his father says he's grateful to the U.S. that his son can go to school there like so many other children his age, but says he hopes the current U.S. administration will tone down the often negative rhetoric that he says seems directed against Mexicans who he says are simply looking for a better life.
El gobierno habla de lo que no conoce. Si el gobierno dice una persona es, no sé, si una persona va a la cárcel por violencia, por drogas, automáticamente piensan que todos son así. Y no, o sea, son mucho más gente la que es que se levanta todos los días para trabajar, para salir adelante, para hacer las cosas bien, que los que buscan la manera fácil.
As high schoolers Victor and his sister and cousins make it to the U.S. side this morning, Victor tells us how long his deported mother must wait for any chance to ever return to the United States to be with them.
She needs to wait 10 years so she can get at least a visa to come and visit here.
What's that feel like, bro?
It's really difficult, to be honest.
Most difficult of all, says Victor, are all of the school graduations he's had that his deported parents have missed.
When I was graduating from middle school, no one came to my graduation. I see all my friends, everyone with their family members with them hanging out while I was just right there in the corner, just getting ready to go to home.
Victor says he hopes that the challenges he and his fellow students face when crossing each day, and that the challenge many of their undocumented parents face each day, may one day be viewed upon with more compassion and understanding.
We're all humans. We are all one. We should just do our best and not criticize other people from their race.